This is the DRF Players Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Thomas Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is show 341, the June 1st. Cannot believe it's June, but June 1st, the calendar tells me, 2018 edition. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you in the Brooklyn bunker. Muggs, the handicapping Labrador, alongside once again, joined today by our peripatetic friend. He is currently on the planet Texas. He will be making his way to Monmouth Park on the Jersey Shore via New York, specifically Brooklyn, in the coming hours. But for now, he's on the planet Texas. He's the people's champion. He's Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
PTF, do I have to wear pants tomorrow? Do you know if that's the case?
Yes. If you are in the parterre boxes at Monmouth and you do not wear pants, you will be banished to the dining area downstairs. Just ask former NHC champ Paul Matisse about this, who, while he was wearing the crown, had to suffer the indignity of being sent downstairs. Don't want that. Bring long pants for both you and for Austin. I'm not sure if there's a little girl's dress code for Perrin as well, but we'll be hanging in the parterre boxes. We will obviously also be making appearances in the contest room. But come say hi, see us. Always great to get a chance to talk to listeners. We'd love to hear what you think about the podcast, about the World Horse Players Tour, etc. So it's always, Monmouth is just a great place to get to see players from all around the country. If you haven't signed up yet for the tournament, too bad. Entries are closed. Can't do anything about that. But you'd still come out to Monmouth Park and hang out with some cool tournament players. And folks should be advised, tournament players should be advised, the Belmont Stakes Challenge closes on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. So if you're interested in playing in the Belmont tournament, get in touch with Dominic Labetti sooner rather than later, our friend at NYRA. I have an article, should be going up any minute if it's not there already, on drf.com about the Belmont tournament and the last chance opportunity for Belmont that will be happening on Sunday. JK, do you project to be participating in that last chance qualifier?
I'm already locked and loaded, PTF. I've got 3 entries already, so I've been qualifying heavily or feeding heavily into those, and so I'm ready to rock and roll. So although we'll be eating pizza and hanging out with the kids on Sunday, we will need to have a little bit of degeneracy mixed in there.
It is a live tournament format too, so you can't just phone it in. You're going to have to pay some attention. Plenty of entries left in that Belmont last chance. I believe it's 410 to play, and 1 entry in 30 will win a package worth $10,500. That's the $10,000 buy-in for Belmont plus $500 in travel. Belmont contest, the way it works, $7,500 of that $10,000 acts as your live bankroll. The other $2,500 fully funds the prize pool. No takeout on that entry fee, just takeout in the money that you have to actually bet through the windows. And I really like the new rules, JK, for Belmont this year. You've got to make 5 $600 bets on Friday, 5 $900 bets on Saturday. There is a little bit of wiggle room if you have an issue making a minimum on Friday. If you don't make if you make all but one of your minimums, you get $600 deducted from your score, and that $600 is not available to bet. If you make 2 mistakes, you're DQ'd. And on Saturday, if you make any mistake, if you don't make all 5 of your minimums, you're DQ'd. So you got that straight, JK? Can we actually get you through one of these contests without getting disqualified?
I got that straight. Yeah, I got that straight. And I was going to make a joke, but I decided not to. I'm good. The rules have been read. I read the Monmouth rules as well, just to make sure. I tell my son all the time, it's okay to make mistakes. Just try not to make the same mistake twice.
It's good advice. And certainly that was your whatever. I'm guessing you were going to maybe make a joke that didn't fully accept responsibility for the blame, which was, the more I think about it, the more I regret how we talked about that the first time. It was probably a good opportunity for me to just rub your face in what a dope you are, and I let it slip through my fingers.
No, my joke was more about the rules and how I feel about the rules versus, anyways. I like the rules.
If there are a few less participants from California in the tournament, well, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Let's move on, JK. Lots of stuff to talk about. We've got the Belmont Stakes Festival coming up. You have one more thing on tournaments before we turn?
Yeah, I wanted to point out just to people that I know, I get on quite often the DRF tournament, and some people just get on when they're trying to accomplish something. Gulfstream, See the Speed Feeders, and Keeneland just popped up. I noticed for Keeneland Fall. Yeah, so if one of those two events is one that you have your eyes set on, you can start feeding into those qualifiers now. That Gulfstream Sees the Speed is $38 1 in 5 feeders that are happening daily, and then Keeneland has a $22 1 in 5 feeder that feeds into their next, the round 2 of sorts that will get you ready for those events. Keeneland, obviously, October 14th in the fall, and then the Sees the Speed at Gulfstream is June 30th.
Excellent. I have yet to write about Sees the Speed. I saw they were up there sort of soft launch this week and was going to go into the heavy pitch next week once we're past Belmont. I hadn't even seen the Keeneland contest yet. I think those might be new this morning, but those are terrific, and hopefully going to be having some more exciting inventory added to DRF tournaments soon. Right now, it obviously focus very much on Monmouth this weekend, which should be fun, and then, of course, Belmont as we go forward. And speaking of Belmont, I promised this last show, and we had so much to talk about, we never got to do it. I also want to get to our question about Justify, but we'll build to that one, JK. And we're going to start here just taking a look at some early prices that are available internationally on the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. I'm going to let Odds Checker be our producer here and go to the first race that they have and just start looking at stuff. And they don't have every race priced up, and not every bookmaker has every race priced up. But the first one I'm seeing here is the Acorn Stakes, field highlighted by Monomoy Girl, currently being listed at odds on at the 4 books that are taking Acorn betting. Caledonia Road in behind, Red Ruby, Most Smart, Spectator, Talk Voove to me, Gas Station Sushi. Hope they don't take my license to broadcast away after saying that, and several others listed longer than that. Just at your first blush, should Monomoy Girl be odds on for this race? And do you have an opinion from this far out?
Yeah, she should be. I think that from all accounts, her previous work at Churchill, I think they worked when it was raining, they waited till right before the first race and worked on a fast track. And she worked with an older horse. I think the horse's name is. I knew I was going to go blank on it. I'll have it in the next 45 seconds. It was a horse that was on a Derby trail last year. That's why it's stuck in my head. Obviously. Anyway, I think she'll be tough. Dazzling Jim. That was the horse I was looking for. Worked with Dazzling Jim, who's a nice horse in his own right. Her performance in the Oaks was impressive. This natural. We don't usually see this with these 3-year-olds that we're following, right? Because most of our 3-year-olds, the males at least, they're going further distances as we go into Belmont weekend. Obviously, with the 16th shorter and the Preakness, but Monomoy Girl is now going to be cutting back from 1 1/8 to a mile, which I don't know which one she's going to enjoy more. It feels like she's going to be better at those kind of middle distances, so I think she's going to be extremely tough. However, there is a horse that I've been following for a while, a horse that I was strong on Derby weekend, and that's Talk Voove for me. I think that the mile will be just right for her. She won't have to kind of chase those faster fractions. She should be able to slow down a little bit early and have a little bit left to finish. So I think she'll be definitely one to consider, but Monomoy Girl deserves to be odds on.
And do you think is it a lone A situation for you, do you think, in picks? I mean, I know it's hard to say from this far out, but we won't hold you to it. Does your gut say lone A in picks, or does your gut say you'd want to use those two from here?
Yeah, I think I would think that I would probably need to use Monomoy grows alone age just off of just the, coming back in 5 weeks off of the big race, is working well. She's obviously kind of risen to the top of the crop with the Oaks win. Talk Vu for me is one that I definitely will have some money on, but she's also one that I'm still trying to validate that she's as good as she is. And so I wouldn't feel right using her equally with a horse that is already kind of proven. Now, if Talk Vu for me goes off at 10-1, then there's really no harm in using her. But I still think that you could probably do just as well just having her as kind of a B horse or using Monomoy as like a double A situation. So obviously depends on who else shows up there, how the whole thing draws. But
we'll talk
definitely an exciting, one of my favorite races of the year.
At great length, we'll talk about it. Not sure when the show is going to air, the second show next week. We may record it early on Thursday, if that's okay with producer Craig, and maybe they'll want to run it live Thursday ahead of Friday's action. Maybe they'll hold it for the regular same bat time, same bat channel, Friday at 11. We'll figure that out. We'll get the notes out there via social media. I'm, of course, at Looms Boldly, JK at UT Big Hair. Let's move on for a quick conversation about the Just a Game stakes, where Sister Charlie is listed by one book, but not the other three. That makes me think Sister Charlie is not going to be participating, and that would leave a Raving Beauty, so impressive last time, looking like a Just a Game winner at the top of the market between 5-2 and 3-1. Have you heard anything about Sister Charlie and where she's reappearing?
I was looking at. I like to look at Horse Racing Nation sometimes. Their probables tracker. Sometimes it's user generated, so sometimes it's wrong. However, it also can give you some hints. The New York Stakes, which I believe gets run on Friday, I'm seeing Sister Charlie, Santa Monica, that other impressive Chad Brown, and 4-Star Crook, Daddy's Little Darling, some of those types. I don't know if they're gonna run on Friday. Maybe that's at 1.25 miles. So maybe the Sister Charlie thing we've heard, she's looking for a little bit more ground. So the idea of the 1-turn mile might not be perfect for her. So they'll run her in this grade 2 instead and kind of point her to some things further down the line to get her grade 1 here.
Let's pause for a second on what you said about the sort of the wiki nature of that website. Are you saying you can't trust what you hear from random people with no platform on the internet?
Oh, man.
I'll let that one hang for a second. Off Limits listed here. Proctor's Ledge, 8-1. Fault listed at 9-1. La Coronel, 12-1 on Leave in that group too. Any of those names leaping out at you, or do you think, were you impressed enough by a Raving Beauty that you think this might be her race to lose?
Yeah, no, she was super impressive. A Raving Beauty was in her last race. I think we tried to beat her with the workout angle. Those are always tricky. These grass races, especially the 1-turn variety, I always seem to miss these races. The Bill Mott filly that won, that ran down the hill, the one that ran the huge number, the year that, God, I don't know why I do this to myself. Yes, Celestine. See, I did it because I knew you would help me out here.
I usually don't. As a host, it's hard to go into memory mode because I'm already thinking of what we're going to talk about next and how to parse that. My memory isn't as bad as it seems on the show. Usually, I just can't go down that particular neural pathway. But for some reason, that one just leapt to mind.
Yeah, so it's a trip race to me. All these fillies are extremely talented, but it's a trip race. I think one of the horses I'm excited to see run back is Proctor's Ledge. She's one that I've always kind of followed, and hopefully she shows up in this spot. It's always a little bit concerning when you're looking at a horse who kind of ran on the good part of a turf course, which is where I think kind of she was over Oaks and Derby weekend. But I also think she's extremely talented. And then Off Limits is another one that I think is one you want to keep an eye out for. But Proctor's Ledge is one I'll take a look at. And the race that Lowell ran at Gulfstream this spring, where she flew early and stayed on, is another one that she could be dangerous here if she happens to find herself loose on the lead.
Let's look at the Woodford Reserve Manhattan. Love that name. Betting for a minute. Beach Patrol, top of the market. Prices like 13-8, 15-8, 7-4, floating around. High Happy available at 3-1, 7-2 in places. Sadler's Joy, between 4 and 7 to 1 at the various books. Robert Bruce listed as far out as 10, as short as 13 to 2. Divisadero in the betting at 12 to 1. What do you think about Beach Patrol that short? I think that might be short enough for me against the serious threat like High Happy. I know in the past you've questioned High Happy. Are you ready to get on this one's train, or are you going to stay opposed?
I kind of want to stay opposed. I kind of want to stay opposed. Well, I'll tell you one horse that has earned my respect, and I think like whatever race they run in, especially if that race happens to take place in the state of New York, I'm going to use One Go All Go. The horse is always forward in a lot of these races where we complain about the pace. I think One Go All Go will always have himself in a position to impact the outcome. Beach Patrol obviously deserves another shot off of that effort, going 1 mile and an eighth, which I think is a sneaky thing about the race that they run on Derby Day. I think it's the Old Forester now, but it was 1 mile and an eighth off of a long break with obviously bigger things to try to accomplish. I think he'll run better in this spot.
That horse is pretty good too. Yeah,
absolutely. Yoshida ran well, and obviously Yoshida was moved up a little bit with the surface.
Queen Anne at Ascot, for those wondering where he is. Did you want to finish that thought, or?
Yeah, no. Obviously, Sadler's Joy is a little bit tricky. He puts himself in these positions by falling so far back out of the race. But if he ever gets an honest pace or a perfectly timed ride, he'll win. He's just like that talented of an animal. And so we'll see what happens with him. And then, it's good to hear the big horse's name. But like I said last week, Divisadero is going to have to prove it to me before I start jumping back on the full bandwagon.
Now, another horse in here, JK, who a picture of. Here I am sitting here this morning, writing my article, minding my own business, and none other than our resident math wizard and friend of the podcast, Eric Bialik, hits me with a picture, a win photo of none other than Arklow. And I'm like, oh, man, he must be in Austin visiting Jonathan, because I don't think he knows Elliot Honecker. So he's the only other guy I know who keeps an Arklow photo close to his place of work. So that's how Eric revealed to me that he was going to be missing Monmouth this year, unfortunately, after making it last year, because he has, I guess, a bachelor party in Austin this weekend. But Arklow does also appear to be pointed to this race. Any you afraid of him at all, or do you figure if he wins again, it will be upsetting the apple cart once again?
Oh, I'm always scared of the green and yellow silks, but yeah, it's one of those situations where if he wins, he beats me. There's nothing on form that suggests that he's going to be able to run with these types going 1.25 miles.
Let's talk for a minute about the Metropolitan handicap, the Met Mile. Mind Your Biscuits, Bolt Doro, B Jersey listed in here, Good Samaritan, who I'm pretty interested in as a horse that I think could take another forward move. McCracken, Awesome Slew, and we're looking at varieties of prices. Let me drill down and look at some of the sharper books before I start throwing prices out here. Mind Your Biscuits listed between 3 to 1 and 5 to 1. Bolt Doro ranging from 11 to 2 at one of the sharper places, all the way out to 8 to 1. American Anthem in some of the betting, 10 to 1 and 12 to 1. Awesome Slew ranging from 7 to 12 to 1.
Did you say Backyard Heaven?
I think Backyard Heaven is not running here. I think Backyard Heaven is running in the Stephen Foster, though he is listed in the betting still, so perhaps they haven't made up their mind. Backyard Heaven available at 4 to 1 in one place and 9 to 2 in another. But I do believe I heard that somewhere that he will not be showing up.
Yeah, I'm excited about an opportunity to bet McCracken. I thought he ran well on Derby Day, or maybe it was Oaks Day, Derby weekend. I thought he was impressive. B Jersey's another kind of sneaky one that has run some sneaky fast numbers. I don't share your enthusiasm with Good Samaritan. I just feel like he continues to run better than I kind of expect him to in certain spots. But I just feel like he's going to be a little bit too pace dependent. I don't see a bunch in here they're going to line up and just cook it up in front of him. So I don't see the setup that he's going to get to win this race. But I would be interested in McCracken from here. I guess I would take another look at Bolt Doro, but I feel like I'm a little bit against that just with the change of plans back and forth. We're going to run the Preakness. No, we're going to wait until the summer. No, we're going to run the Preakness. No, we're going to run the Met Mile. Like, no, you don't know what you're going to do is what you should have said. So Mind Your Biscuits is always tricky. What a quality animal he is with his run that he had in Dubai. If we're all believing that the bias was what the bias was, he ran one of the biggest races in the history of Dubai. The way he ran in the Golden Shaheen, the 1-turn mile shouldn't be a problem for him. So, this is always one of the most fun races to watch, and one of the most fun races to watch, and I also think one of the most misleading races. We talked about it before, and Richard Migliori actually tweeted yesterday. Quote, I know a great deal is made about the Met Mile being a stallion maker, but if you go back to 1990 to current day, you can count on one hand the elite stallions that have won it so far. End quote. I think that it's a misleading myth about the race. And
it depends on how you look at it. I mean, the point that I would make about it is in terms of what happens to that horse's commercial value the next day. And I think it undeniably is going to increase what a horse is worth in terms of their residual value as a stallion. That may be a great point. There are plenty of instances where the breeding market might be inefficient and overvalue things, but I think you got to be – I think when it comes to – I guess it depends on how you're going to use that information is my only caution. Hearing that does not make me want to back off the idea that for people looking to make stallions, it's like a mega important race.
Do you get a bigger bump winning the Met Mile as a stallion, winning the Met Mile, or winning the Whitney?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, my gut says it'd be pretty even, right? You're dealing with similar, you're dealing with races that both are going to require a certain blend of speed and stamina and grade ones that attract strong fields. My gut says the Met Mile fields have probably been stronger over the last several years, but maybe you've seen, brilliant performances in both. It's tough to say. As I always like to say about you and me, JK, when we talk about breeding, we know just enough to get ourselves into trouble. And that reminds me of another point, and we can continue on this, but just to go on a little tangent, another incorrect thing we said when we were talking the other week about looking at a potential of a Coolmore deal for Justify and the idea of coming up with a Scat Daddy replacement. Scat Daddy is not – we made it sound like Scat Daddy had been bred to the Galileo mares in the Coolmore band, which isn't right. Those Scat Daddy horses, while they've had a ton of success on turf and specifically at Royal Ascot, a lot of those female side pedigrees have been largely American. Amazingly enough, they've had some turf in them, but they've been hewn closer to dirt and American stuff. So were some sort of deal to go down, I wouldn't necessarily think. I think that the bookings that he would receive over there wouldn't necessarily be what we were talking about the other day. But any other thoughts on the Met Mile or our little forays into talking about breeding?
No, I think we can move. Maybe. What's next? You got the Woody Stevens. Is that around?
No prices for that yet, but we do have prices for the Ogden Phipps, so we can talk about that. It's another one of these races where it's hard to tell who's gonna show up, especially given some of the horses who are entered this weekend. But the names at the top of the market right now in the advanced betting, and I'll just quote the sharpest of the books here, as opposed to running through the list of prices. Abel Tasman 3-1. Salty 7-2, American Gal 9-2, Unbridled Mo 11-2, Fault at 8-1, Unique Bella listed at 9-2, but unlikely starter. Ivy Bell 9-1, who I'm a little interested in. Wouldn't take that price. I think you might get that price on the day, or at least close enough to it that it wouldn't be worth taking it from this far out. But those are just some of the names listed there. If you have any fancies at this point.
Yeah, Ivy Bell is I needed her on May 5th when they ran, and the Humana Distaff going 7, second time for Todd. She was working really well leading up to that. It was kind of a frustrating race, and I thought she maybe had a chance. I think she's definitely one to consider. I'm not sure what to do with Abel Tasman. Obviously, she had nothing go her own way in that last race. However, I was shocked to hear Baffert in some post-race interviews say that he felt like she couldn't lose, like how confident he was in her. So you would think that she'll, if she gets on the plane, she'll take the step forward. And let's not forget she ran well at Belmont in the past. She ran that huge race in the Acorn last year. So the surface and the configuration of the track is something that's to her liking. I don't really care what happens with Salty. I'll try to beat her. I still don't know how she won last time, and I'll continue to try to beat her.
Ivy Bell, really interesting to me. What for you was so frustrating about that race last time?
Well, outside of the money that I had on it in the contest, I had played a double with McCracken into her. It was paying like, I don't know, it was good. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's not so much the ride that like frustrated. I know what you're thinking. I was insinuating it was the ride. It wasn't so much the ride. It's just that I thought she had dead aim. I thought she was going to run by American Gal, and I thought she got a pretty good trip. I mean, I just thought everything was working out well, and it's just like Javier just didn't like really pick her up and push her across the line like I hoped or thought that he would. So it was frustrating in that regard. Like there was no real reason that she didn't get it done.
She ran great, and the other filly ran better. I wasn't curious. I was curious if you thought there was something more to it, but I think I'm just sensing that your frustration was more purely from a betting point of view as opposed to.
Yeah, and just the fact that, and just to reiterate, it's like she didn't really have an excuse. You know what I mean? But I don't think she ran bad, so that's why it's frustrating. Because usually, if you get beat, you can say, "Oh, well, that she got beat because that happened." You know what I mean? But I didn't have that.
Sometimes what happened is you find one better on the day. That would be my read of what the case was there. Obviously, we'll talk way more in depth about all these races when we can properly handicap them. But we have had some requests to go over the field, so we wanted to do that. And now we get to the Belmont Stakes, JK. And once again, I'll just lean on the sharpest books numbers when it comes to this race. Justify 4-5. How about this? Hofburg 4-1. I think I'm about the biggest Hofburg fan out there, and 4-1 seems absurdly short to me. Bravazzo 8-1, Tenfold 10, Vino Rosso 9, Blended Citizen 12, and not just 12, but 12, and you get to watch JK walk home from Belmont. Lots of people looking forward to that, I know. Noble Indy 33, which is probably too big. And Bandua, this Dermot Weld trainee, Calumet Farm, dirt pedigree, run twice on heavy ground in Ireland at 20-1. Free drop Billy at 50s, Gronkowski at 66. Your thought at the current prices, and then I'm going to ask you the question I promised I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I think the Hofburg thing at 4-1 is a little bit aggressive.
I don't think he'll be 4-1 on the day. I think you wait if you want to bet Hofburg.
When I was looking at the win.
If you have matchups from there, that might be fun too. I don't have that file open, but
no, I don't think they. Yeah, someone sent it to us, but I can't remember who sent it, so I was trying to find it in the text. But I do remember that Hofburg, Bravazzo, and Vino Rosso were like the same price at the win, like all like 6 and 7-1, which I thought that was a little bit odd too. I mean, I think Hofburg should clearly be the second choice, and those other two shouldn't really be in the same area as him. Just a side note, I don't know if you noticed it, but on the bottom of the win page, I think it's hilarious, is they have a prop that will Justify win the Triple Crown and will the Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup.
That is awesome. What kind of a price can you get on that?
I think no was like minus 250 or 300, and plus was like 300 plus 300, like 3-1 plus 250, something like that.
Yeah, we'd have to ask some good hockey bettors out there who'd have to price that one up for us. But
remind me what you said Justify was.
4-5 in the sharpest of the overseas places, which is I think what he's come into at the win, based on he was 11-10 earlier in the week. We spoke to an associate who was getting down on that and even a little longer, but last I saw he's come in.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you like him, you should take him now. I mean, I think you're going to get half of that on the day. I think it's going to be 1 to 2.
It's so hard to know, but yeah, I would guess you're going to see 1 to 2 on the tote for various reasons. Now, I want to ask the big question, JK. To your view, is Justify slowing down?
No, I don't think so. And I haven't talked about it. I've just been thinking about it. And here's where I'm having a hard time with it is I just feel like in the Derby, the racetrack was like kind of tricky, right? I mean, it started off, it progressively rained worse as the day went on. So that the track is just kind of funny. You still have those big breaks. And I just think it's hard to make figures for those races. All these Triple Crown races, I think it's hard to make figures for these Triple Crown races. And so then the Preakness, it's like we hear about all these timing issues and all of these different situations. And like, I just can't imagine that it's as easy to make a figure in those conditions as it is to make them in a dry scenario. I just don't see how that's the case. And the fact that he was slowing down after going head and head with the 2-year-old champion and a quality animal in Good Magic, which I don't think anyone's questioning, I think that also affected his ability to, in his timing that he came home, which obviously affected his final time. I think on a fast track, going 47, going 1.5 miles with the class and the stride efficiency that this animal has, like when they turn for home, when the rest of them are looking to find something else, I just feel like he's not even going to have to really reach yet. I just think that, now look, now here, how about this? If they were going back to run it 1.25 miles at the Derby, they were going to get on a plane and go back and run it 1.25 miles on a 1.25 miles on a fast track in the Derby again. Oh, I would not feel nearly as good about this whole situation. But I think it's a completely different animal when you're going 1.5 miles and against the horses that he's going to be facing.
Well, that's the thing. There isn't that obvious horse to keep him honest. And that is the reason why I do believe he's about 50-50 to win the race. And I misspoke, by the way. There's still 11 to 10 at the win, looking at the most recent information. He opened at 4 to 5. And I mean, even to me, who I consider myself pretty negative overall on him as not as a racehorse, not anything like that, but just as a bet to win this race, I am not anywhere near as bullish as you. Love the 12 to 1 I have in the bank on Hofburg, and might not make another. That's an each way play, so I might not even have to make another bet. But I guess what concerns me, everything you're saying is true. What concerns me is we've seen so many horses just find this test a bridge too far, and you're dealing, whatever it was, the 12 or 13 in between before the Pharaoh did it. And I always had this sneaking suspicion that maybe some of Pharaoh's time off, unplanned time off during his racing career might have actually helped him have the juice to continue to be so good throughout the summer. Here we have a horse making, a short amount of starts in a short amount of time. And it just seems like we've seen so many regress from the Preakness to the Belmont that even if you even if I accepted your view of why the numbers are getting slower, he just doesn't seem like a horse that is poised to move forward. I agree. The trip looks like it's going to be great. There was absolutely nothing wrong with his workout the other day. That did not look like a tired horse at all. But sometimes I just think it pays to take the contrarian view when you're looking at a horse, especially when on the day he's going to be 1 to 2. It's kind of funny. It's a bit muggish from my point of view. There's a big part of the reason why I want to have if I do make more bets in the race, who's kidding who, I probably will. I want to have him, maybe him and Hofburg in some horizontals or some combinations with Justify just on top in verticals. I want to be able to cheer with everybody. And I know that's so silly, but I'm not a professional bettor. I don't need to have every wager I make be efficient. I'm going to do that, and for semi-muggish reasons, if I can find some value possibilities in either other legs or a clever way to figure out what I think is going to happen underneath. But I'm also, if I make plays like that, going to have a small part of the play, beating him and maybe beating him all the way out, just because there's just going to be so much to be gained, in my opinion. Now, this Vegas thing is bothering me. the 11-10 thing is bothering me. I'm not saying it's smart money or they know more than anybody else, but it does seem interesting that people in the bet-taking business, fully aware the horse is going to be odds on the day, seem in such a hurry to take bets on the horse, lay bets on the horse, rather. Does that bother you any little bit?
No, not really, because I feel like they're probably taking a lot of money on other horses too. And I think probably before this workout, wondering if he's going to be tired, and after the performance, the Preakness, which wasn't visually or clock, from a clock standpoint, impressive. I just feel like they probably are getting money on the other sides too. You know what I mean? And the other thing is to keep in mind is there might be. I have no idea if this even makes sense yet, so I'm saying it out loud before it is. They might be in a position where they might, because of the Triple Crown bet that they take, they could be in a position where like one side of that is allowing them to take this at a different, to put the, you know what I'm saying?
It's possible. That's a good John Avello question, and it would be fun to have him on at some point actually and talk about. There's not that many places not that many people whose job it is to help price these things up in live markets in the USA. And yeah, there could be some other things at play. I just think it's interesting and it's unusual. And that's why I bring it up. And I would say if you have a friend in Vegas, or you can get down at one of the books overseas where you can still get 11-10, I'm not excited about it. I wouldn't do it. But if you like the horse, I think it's a very smart thing to do.
And here's another thing, just like looking at just some random like online, like, overseas betting things, like, online betting sites, like he's minus 145. So what is that? That is.
I go to websites to come up with this thing. If this isn't a JK tries math fails, I don't know what it is.
Well, it's minus 145, so it's like what, like 6 to 10?
I'll do the actual calculation here.
Anyway, my point is, I think there's a reason why they're Johnny and the Win are probably offering it at that price. I feel like there's probably some behind the scenes situation that's allowing them to kind of present that price.
It's possible. It seems to me like somebody thinks it's a really good bet. This is a horse you want to lay, but doesn't mean they're right. And it wouldn't get me, if I was on like you, it wouldn't get me off. Fractionally, it comes to 20 to 29, whatever that is in a real price. Yeah, that's not a good one. I thought these websites are supposed to give you prices that we can actually use. I'm going to keep working on that one. And meanwhile, do you have any other thoughts on this race and how you factor? Evaluate the possibility of just taking that Vegas price versus other ways you might play the race.
Yeah, I mean, with the great racing that takes place on that day, I'm going to try to be alive in picks. I'm going to try to be alive in the pick 6, which essentially I'll create a ticket that's like a pick 5. From a combination standpoint, I want to be alive to the horse in those types of situations. Obviously, there'll be the Naira, the pick 5 if you're there. The pick 4 is always great. One of my favorite moments in my horse racing life is a pick 4 on Belmont Day. There's a lot of different ways you can try to get alive to that horse. And then I'll just try to be a fan. The other problem is the second most likely horse, in my opinion, is Hofburg, and he's going to be overbet too. From a standpoint of like what you think his real chances are of winning, he in my opinion, he'll be overbet. If he's if he's 5-1 on the day, then that suggests that he's got a 16% chance of winning. And I don't know if it feels like it might be less than that. If Justifies, 50 or 60 or 70%, and then all the other horses in the race deserve some percentages as well. I don't know if that number's right or not. So I feel like he'll be overbet as well.
For the record, minus 145 comes out, decimal odds 1.69. That's basically right in between 3-5 and 4-5. So that wherever that book that you saw was, that's a lousy price. Even the worst prices that I'm seeing are better than that one. So don't take that. Though it still might be longer than the horse is.
Hofburg is plus 425, so 4-1. So I mean, they're just trying to. They're just. It seems like they're trying to mope people in here.
Yeah, that seems like a horrible market with a terrible over round that you don't want any part of. But don't. I don't want to be bashing anybody. Don't mention where it is. But don't be taking prices like that. I would say if I were making an odds line on Hofburg, I'd be, and again, without handicapping the race, it's tough. But I'd probably want to put my value line in the 5-1 neighborhood, in other words, where I wouldn't bet if it was 5-1, but if it was 6-1, I would maybe allow myself to dip the toe in the water a little bit more. Less than that, you just watch the race, I think, or I mean, it's a big ask. It's a big ask for the horse. I mean, I think I like the horse. He's my pick in the race, but it's it's a lot more appealing if he could get 8-1 or 10-1. You just don't know if there's some other buzz that comes up. Maybe the Pletcher horses will catch more money in the actual tote market than they are, and you get a little bit of pleasing drift on him. It'll be fun. I mean, this is a race where I do feel like we can almost handicap it in full now, and it just sure doesn't seem like he's going to have that company on the lead. I'm still taking a little bit of a cynical view. JK obviously much more bullish. We'll talk much more specific wagering strategy as we get closer to the day. And speaking of which, you got one more thing on this?
Yeah, I went to another site, but I saw 4-5 on Justify. But I also saw a prop, 6-1 for Justify to win the Belmont and the Breeders' Cup.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I mean, certainly getting ahead of ourselves, but
quite a bit.
If he wins this race, though, I mean, it'd be hard to imagine him not being a top-level contender in that spot. But with so much that could go wrong between now and then, I don't know. What's your gut on that price? Do you like it or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I know Muggs isn't probably happy about it. She
thinks it's outrageous.
She's a big Hofburg fan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's go ahead, throw your money away, JK.
It's one of those things where it's fun, right? It's fun to kind of have something to cheer for. It's fun to have something to root for. I don't think it's the smartest allocation of funds. However, it's interesting. It's an interesting topic. It's fun to play with. But I think you're right. If he wins this race, what happens? He gets a little bit of a break. He points likely for a Haskell or Travers campaign, and then makes one more start in between then and this. It makes. I mean, he could show up there, and he'll be shorter than that on the day.
I will bet you $1 jillion he will not run in both. The
Haskell. Oh no! I said or.
No, I know. I just was pointing it out as a funny thing. Somebody was getting overexcited the other day about the horse running at the Travers, and I kind of feel like that's just not going to happen. I feel like, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but hey, we're already there, so let's go. Haskell, Pennsylvania Derby, Breeders' Cup, done and dusted. And then if he doesn't run in the Haskell, I still don't think that he's necessarily going to want to come back at 1.25 miles at despite the success he's had there. There's going to be some stinging memories from your close personal friend. I don't see the path where he runs in the Travers. Do you?
The ownership sure would like to win that race, wouldn't they?
For sure. But the trainer gets to. I think he's going to be calling the shots, and I think being a little bit scarred. I think it could come into play. The scars of American Pharaoh's defeat at the hands of the yellow and green. I could see that. I could see that becoming a factor in where the horse gets plotted, just because of. I mean, there's just such a logic to Jersey. Just seems like a track that would suit him, doesn't it? And Pennsylvania. I mean, obviously, if he had Farrow to do over again, that would have been the path. And I think in a weird way, if he wins this, that's how he's going to look at it, and that's what he's going to do. But I'm just a guy talking here. I have no inside information. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's look. If you're giggling at us and you're listening to this show about us talking about this, sometimes it's fun to just get way, way, way out ahead of yourself. And we are completely acknowledging that we're way out ahead of ourselves.
Hey, we may have the conversation if he loses the race. It certainly wouldn't be as interesting a one if he loses the race. So who knows? It might be the only chance we have to fantasize about this.
Yeah, no, I would love to see him in the Travers. I don't think that experience necessarily scared Bob Baffert off. Let's remember his last Travers experience was Arrogant winning by 10 and breaking the track record, right?
A little bit different with a late bloomer like Arrogant than a horse who's been through the grinder of whatever it'll be, 6 races in 15 weeks. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying against the Travers.
I think the problem though that Farrow had was Haskell then Travers. I think that's what probably knocked him out, rather than maybe doing something a little bit lighter leading up to the Travers. Doing something at home,
the Dandy.
Yeah, well, but then you either got to keep him over, you got to keep him there. You don't want to ship him over for the Dandy, ship him back to California, and then ship him back for the Travers.
All right,
we've got the same problem.
Now we've officially gone too far into the weeds. We'll be talking about this more. Let's get through the Belmont first and see what happens. And let's get through this weekend's races. First of all, shall we begin with the Pennine Ridge at Belmont? JK, did you have a chance to look at this one? What are your thoughts?
I did. Of course, you went. I guessed you were going to start out west first, so I had that one play. But I'm ready. I'm ready now.
I'm so out of tune today. I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah, so I've heard for sure. I'm not positive, but just keep it in mind when you're handicapping that Hawkish is going to run in the Penn Mile. Obviously, the scratches aren't in yet, so we don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure. I'm a huge Analyze It fan. I think the horse is like really something special, and I think he's probably going to blow this field away. I feel a little bit dirty about him being 4-5 on the morning line, as if Catholic Boy's not an accomplished horse who ran really well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, ran well in the With Anticipation, obviously winning that race. The little dirt experiment, not experiment, that's not fair. The dirt campaign seems to have come full circle back to the turf, pointing towards the Belmont Oaks. I think he could present a little bit of value. However, I don't see myself using any other A horses except for Analyze It. He just seems too good to me. And he's tactical, which is even more dangerous when you're running at a place like Belmont. And when you get up to Saratoga, he's not one of those Chad Browns that's going to be 5th or 6th, that's going to kind of have to find his trip and get some pace. He creates his own race, and that's what makes him so dangerous.
I think it's likely he'll be on the lead here, blow up all the other speed, and run away with it. I love Catholic Boy, one of my favorite horses in training. I think Analyze It seems better suited to the soft conditions we're going to see. And I think Catholic Boy is really good and could obviously run in the number, but I think he'll be seen to his best effect later in the season. Just as a long shot to go with Analyze It, I'll just throw out the idea of Channel Cat, who I thought had a tough trip on the worst part of the track for at least part of the American turf. Should be a big price, can really finish. Could see him running past the horses that Analyze It blew up and getting into the number at a very good price.
And I don't remember if Nick Tamero jumped on Untamed Domain pretty tough on our show or if it was on Bick, but he jumped on him pretty tough. And I thought he ran okay. I was with him. I agreed with him about how Untamed Domain's last few races had just been poor. But he showed up a little bit in the American turf and ran well on a surface that had some cut in the ground, and he was probably on the good part of the track that day. But nonetheless, he did run well on a big day off of a break versus good horses. So he's another one that I wouldn't completely ignore.
Yeah, he should be another who should be running late and run in. The negative about him, if you wanted to be cynical, and I've always been a fan of his, but he was on the best part of the track. He did get a great setup. I still think he has an excellent chance to run 3rd or 4th here. The other horse is just going to be Channel Cat's going to be a much bigger price, and I think has similar attributes. Shall we move on to Penn National, JK?
We should. This is a fun day. I always encourage horse players when racetracks that you might not always pay attention to put together these kind of stakes-filled cards that we should try our hardest to support them. They are putting together really bettable races and putting up a lot of money to get some big horses there, and so. And they're fun. It's a fun change-up to be alive in Penn National, and you're watching a race there, and you don't really watch them very often. So, the Penn Mile I think is always a fun race, and it looks like Hawkish is going to show up here. I thought Hawkish was a standout here. If he does show up here, I had him as a single A horse on my out of the gate play with therapist Pete. We were talking about the one word Clement horse before the show. Is my single B horse. I'm a little nervous about the Gulfstream form, but you can't really argue with the resume. The Palm Beach Downs, where he was second to Murad, was the only time this horse didn't get his picture taken. So I think he's one to consider. I'm against Murad here for kind of the reasons we discussed earlier with Untamed Domain. I think he was on the good part of the track. He ran the best figure and the best race of his life in a downpour, in a race where I did not think he was going to run well. And I'm going to go ahead and say that the surface and the situation that day with the setup or why he ran so well, he's going to be bet with Todd Pletcher, with Johnny Velasquez, with the win in the American Turf on Derby Day. And I think there's some value in that pick 3 sequence if you could beat him.
Just be aware, folks, as you're listening to this, how much money Sons of Unbridled Empire have cost JK and me, to be fair. So I'll just say both of us have cost us over the years. You may want to throw in Murad just because of that hunch play, but I take your point, Jonathan. Definitely one who seemed well served by the conditions and the trip last time, and I would also be a little bit skeptical. I don't know. What about these races? They're happening sort of early evening. Will we be watching them on the boat ride on the way back from Monmouth on the phone? Is that what we're going to have to do?
I would think that's probably what we'll be. I remember watching. I was at the Monmouth contest previously and watching Bobby's Kitten run in this race. I think at some point. So we'll be on the boat, probably maybe in an Uber. Maybe trying to control these two children. We'll see what happens.
Do you think we can get away? There's a good brewery right in Atlantic Highlands. Do you think we can get away with sneaking in a couple pints before we get on the ferry? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. It's kid friendly. I'm sure it is. I went to a brewery in Cincinnati. There was more kids there than adults. So
which one? Rheingeist?
Rheingeist. Yeah, they had kids everywhere playing cornhole and all. I mean, they were everywhere.
That is one of the biggest spaces. And I don't know, there's the inside bar at Rheingeist, and then there's up on the roof, which is just tremendous. My last time through Keeneland, I spent a good part of Sunday in there just talking with the crew. Some people really know their beer, and I was impressed. Kentucky people, if you're looking for a cool place to check out, if you don't know it already, up in Cincinnati, Rheingeist. And there's some other interesting breweries around there too, but Rheingeist tops the list. All right, we've got 8 minutes left, assuming we can run 5 minutes long because we started 5 minutes late. Producer Craig, text me if that's a problem, and I'll wrap it up real quick. But I think we should move on to Churchill Downs. If you want more of JK's analysis of the Penn National card, we don't always do this, but we're going to do it this week. You're going to have to listen to him on Out of the Gate and get that full play. What did you give there? A pick 3 or a pick 4 with those nice stakes races?
Pick 3. I was going to do a pick 4, but I didn't have an opinion in the first leg, and we've talked about that on the show. You don't have to play the pick 3. You can play the pick 3. I mean, the pick 4. You can play or the pick 5 or the pick 6 or the pick 3 for that matter. You can play the sequence where you have the best opinion. Save those combinations for more of an outlay from an equity standpoint. You know, your denomination, instead of doing a $5 or a $1 pick 4, do a $5 pick 3. I think you'll find that your strike rate will be better because you're just hoping and guessing anyways about the first leg if you don't like anything.
100% right. And as Mike Maloney used to tell his dad, the great Bud Maloney, one of the stars of Betting with an Edge, sometimes the bet for you is the pick 1.
I need to listen to that. I need old Bud in my life. I'm not much of a pick 1er.
All right, let's talk about this race. Now, I almost did it again. I almost had an egregious mispronunciation that was going to get everyone in Kentucky shaking their heads and being like, oh, that Fornatel's at it again. Maybe what they say about him is true. Because I was going to call this race the Aristides, but in fact, from what I understand, Aristides. The Aristides. It's a grade 3. We're going 6 furlongs on the dirt at Churchill. This will be happening Saturday night. Did you have an opportunity to look at this one? I didn't tell you we were going to be talking about this, so if you're looking on the fly, I can go for a little bit. But did you look at this race?
No, Pete, I already glanced. I figured that we'd get the kids in bed, and we would, maybe have an adult beverage and sit down and watch try to get alive in the pick 6 to the big horse. And so I glanced a little bit. I like Awesome Saturday in that race.
Me too.
I thought he ran really well in the Commonwealth at Keeneland. It's a little bit discouraging that Warriors Club won that race, and I hate to pick on Warriors Club as good as that horse continues to run in situations. And Limousine Liberal also came back and won out of that race, but it was kind of a what the Matisse guys call a salad bowl finish, like just a bunch of horses at the finish line at one time. And that's kind of a hint that it might not be as good of a race as you might think. But I thought that Awesome Saturday ran well. So he's one that I would take a look at. And then also Chief Chicatriz, who was up there on that quick pace that also saw a horse that I loved on the day, Imperial Hint, fall apart. So maybe second off of a break for him could be dangerous as well. So I like the 2 outside horses.
I'll piggyback on with just one note about Awesome Saturday, that was a day where it seemed like ground loss mattered, and this horse was 4 wide largely. So I think he did run better than the rest of the horses that might have ended up in that group, and just looks like one who's getting better and should take another step forward here. Definitely the one that I like in a race where there is some speed that I don't think really has that great an ability to finish. I think Awesome Saturday is a little bit of a standout. Let's go on to the one we've called a few. I think we've called 3 different horses in this show, the big horse, but this is the one, JK, that the podcast owns a piece of. We're talking about Long On Value making his return to the races in the Mighty Bow. What do you think of our chances in here?
I told a friend of mine in Kentucky, I was like, hey, I'm going to be in Monmouth for the contest, but do you want to go over to Churchill Downs, and in case this horse wins, you can get in the winner's circle photo? Because, I mean, I own the horse, so, like, if you want to be in the and they laughed at me. They said that my 0.5% doesn't count. Well, I think it should count, shouldn't it? I mean, come on.
Definitely. You see some of these photos, some of the ownership groups, and they put 100 people in there. So there you go. You and I deserve one spot between it.
We'd have to be half. What else would have to be? We'd have to trade off. This week, this time you go. The next time I can go.
Something like that. In all seriousness, what is your value? I'm assuming you handicap the heck out of this race. What's your view?
Yeah, no, I'm curious where Morticia's going to run. She's cross-entered. And yes, she versus a bunch of other male horses. She's obviously a good one. So, but she's entered in Penn, so she might end up. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the only horse I fear in this spot, to be honest with you, is Hoagie. If one of these horses who was running kind of figures that were a little bit closer to what Long On Value and Hoagie run, and they were forward types, I would be a little bit more nervous. But most of them, they're not. It doesn't feel like they're going to just kind of skirt away from us here. I feel like they're going to keep us, both of us, Long On Value and Hoagie, close into the race, and give us a real good shot. Long On Value can. I know we both talked about his ability to probably excel going a little bit longer, and kind of the fun stuff about him we think will be a little bit longer. But the horse has run 6 times at 5 furlongs and won 3 of them and was second twice. So
he's so talented that even if it's a little sharp, he's got a chance. I was a little worried about him being just on one hand, I was worried based on pace figures, he might be far back. But, of course, now he's being trained to run 5 furlongs in the hands of obviously a terrific horseman who wins a whole lot of races and might have some of that off-the-bench freshness, too, that keep him in the race. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think I'm going to be wagering. I think I'm just going to be rooting like a lunatic. And I like your idea of maybe trying to get some sort of pick going so that can augment our beer drinking and late night race watching on tomorrow night. But, you know, more of an action play for me than a prime play. Is this one that you would advise others to bet on?
Look, I mean, you know, from a handicapping standpoint, there's 2 things I'll say. One is that I'm curious what's going to happen with Hoagie here. Because remember, Hoagie was one that was a 5 furlong specialist, and then when Maker decided to stretch him out, he started actually kind of running well going longer. I would imagine that the training it takes to get a horse to stretch from 5 to 8 and win a stakes race, like he did at Gulfstream, probably requires the horse to kind of be trained differently to slow him down a little bit. He was already one that was kind of going to fall kind of far back out of it. So I'm hopeful that's the case. One thing that does make me a little nervous about Hoagie is that he did run on the outside of that Keeneland turf course that we had talked about with the all spring has been it was a problematic path to be in. So look, we got to beat one horse. It's a great stepping stone for what the group thinks we could possibly do next with this horse. And so I think he's going to run well. And if you look at his race January 28th at Gulfstream, you don't see those running lines at Gulfstream going 5, where a horse was 11, 10 lengths out of it. At the top of the stretch, he was 7 lengths out of it, and he missed by half a length. Like, that doesn't happen. And so he is extremely talented, and I'm not too concerned about the distance.
Let's move on to the grade 1 out in California, the Beholder Mile. Just have like a minute for this one, JK. I'll let you give a quick thought. Some familiar names in here. Yeah, I wanted to understand why Unique Bella didn't run as well as I kind of expected her to do in the Apple Blossom, but there's a lot of different reasons. The track had some moisture in it. She kind of didn't start the race well. She rushed up, she pulled, and those are enough reasons why I can feel like she ran like she did. I think she's still probably the most talented female horse in the country. There's no one in here that really I fear. I mean, Val Dory is only good when she's not racing against good types. Paradise Woods is like hinting at the fact that maybe she wants a different career. I mean, she's going to need to run much better in this spot to suggest anything different. But what kind of trip is she going to get? She's either going to have to take back and eat dirt and have to run down Unique Bella, or she's going to have to put herself out there and let Unique Bella sit right off of her. I think this is Unique Bella's race to win. Unfortunately, I wish that, there's if you can get a good filly to run against Unique Bella, there's going to be a plenty of opportunity to make some money. I just don't think that this is the one. Fair enough. All right, we are out of time on this slightly late to the post edition of the DRF Players Podcast, show 341, June 1st edition. I want to thank you, JK, for a stellar effort today. Much appreciated. I want to thank producer Craig, Travis Stone, and Willie Nile for providing our open. You want to check out more of Willie Nile's music, it's willienile.com. Most of all, I want to thank everybody for listening. We do the show because people like it, and it's so fun getting a chance to interact with listeners. Special shout out to listener Drew Coatney, who sent me a very impressive care package of beer and booze from Chicago. Some good looking stuff, JK. We might have to dip into some of that while watching these races this weekend. There's one stout in there that I think you'll enjoy. It's actually more of a black IPA than a stout, but it works. But anyway, we love the listeners. Thank you so much. Hit us up, podcast@drf.com. Go ahead.
Did you say black IPA?
Yes. You're not familiar with that style?
Oh no, I just thought this was your second. Thought this was your second attempt at a joke at me today.
No. That's an actual beer style. It's
no,
just
I know.
It's a
I'm
stout.
joking.
It's like super hopped. We're not going to make that other joke. That's for the next time when we do the show live from the dungeon, JK. We're not doing that. We're not doing that here. There's enough heat on me these days. I don't need to bring any more. Anyway, that's it. Peter Thomas Fornatel. We will be back on Tuesday. May you win all your photos.